Welcome to Intellectual Dissatisfaction. We're here with Justin McNeal, a candidate for the U.S. Senate, Republican, to talk about his campaign. We're going to ask him some questions. We're going to kind of see where he lands on things. And hopefully, you guys, the viewers, will come out of it more informed and ready to vote. So, Justin, why don't you, well, first of all, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. I know it's late. We're probably both pretty tired, but we're here to get after it. So why don't you just kind of, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, work history, so on and so forth, and anything you want to say.
Sure. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Justin McNeal, and I'm running for the United States Senate in the Republican primary, which the primary is coming up June 2nd. So we're exactly 2 weeks away. So this is the fun time. We're going out there and meeting all of you as much as we can. To answer your question, Jeremy, a little bit about me. So the My family goes back pre-statehood here in South Dakota. My mother was the first generation to leave South Dakota. She was part of the brain drain, so she got a really good degree from the School of Mines out there in Rapid City in chemistry. Didn't wanted a job here in South Dakota, and a job didn't exist for her, so she moved down to Texas. It's where she met my father. That's where I was raised. So after graduating high school, I'm a product of public schools down in Texas. I joined the military right out of high school, and the Navy trained me to be a nuclear engineer on submarines. So I went to the Naval Nuclear Power School in Charleston, South Carolina. And then I got a fast attack submarine out of beautiful Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, the USS Key West. So spent 4.5 years out to sea, 3.5 of which I never seen the sun. So believe it or not, I do not glow in the dark. But after the military, I needed a job. Me and two other guys started a financial services company in a little small office. We found some success in that. We grew it to 6 offices in 4 states. And then, I moved back here to South Dakota, and most recently, I started a company called Dakota Biochar. We're focused on solving two problems with that company. One is the waste wood accumulation in the Black Hills National Forest, and second is healing unproductive farmland all across the state of South Dakota. So we take just the waste wood out of the forest. We're generating some power off of it. Somebody was making fun of me the other day. They said, Justin, you went from the most sophisticated way to make power, nuclear power, to the most primitive, burning wood. But yeah, so we're generating some power, and then we're creating this product called biochar. And then that biochar just acts like a sponge. Think of it like a sponge. Um, so it'll hold 6 times its weight in water. We can charge it with fertilizers, manure, compost. We're seeing all across the state through industrial, farming practices, we're just killing the soil. And you can only take from the soil so much. You have to replenish it.
Mhm.
So by putting this carbon or this biochar back into the soil, you're replenishing the soil, making it healthier. So that's a little bit about what we're doing here. I guess as far as business. And then, I guess my why, people ask me all the time, Justin, why would you run for the United States Senate? You got a pretty nice life. Why? And well, my why is the same. When I first started looking to get in politics 2 years ago, the federal debt was $35 trillion. That
Mhm.
debt today is 39 trillion. It's not sustainable. It's going to cripple the country. It's what we're going to pass down to the next generation. This isn't a Democrat or Republican issue. It's time to stop pointing fingers. This is an American problem. We can fix it. We can solve it. This is just a simple math problem. It's going to be hard. It's going to hurt, but we can get through it. One thing I learned in my time in finance was that we're all willing to do the hard things now so we can have an easier time later. We just need an actionable plan we can get behind. And
Right.
I think we've been failing at getting that plan. Um, you know, the thing with politics, just talk to a politician, they all beat their chest about, oh, I brought this much money back to our district or to the state, and it's like, well, the problem with that is that there's 100 other you guys, there's 100 other senators doing the same thing, or
Yep.
there's 435 other House of Representatives guys doing it. Everybody's taking um, and it's just not sustainable. And I think the American public is starting to understand that and see that. And I think we're looking for plans. The people are looking for a plan on how we pass something better than what we received. How do we make something better to give it to
Right.
the next generation? We've all been under crippling debt before. I've been in. I'm sure, Jeremy, you've had your share of debt. We
Oh,
all
sure.
have, right? And it's weighing on you. Our interest payments are more than defense spending. It's the highest line item in the budget now. And so we it's just a simple math problem, right? You
Yeah.
have income and you have expenses, and when you have more expenses than income, you get deficits. So that's to answer your question. I'll let you ask the next one. So I don't want to keep rambling here.
No, man, you're doing great. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Some really good context and insights into kind of your background. And yeah, it seems like your core issue, that's what I've kind of come to the conclusion too, is like trying to work on the national debt. And that's funny because some of the smartest people I know in the country that I talk to, I'm friends with. I got a teacher down in Texas, he's a buddy of mine. He just always said it just doesn't, he's like, it is an important issue, but like no one's willing to actually address it. Like you got all these politicians, all this money behind it and all this stuff, and they mention it every once in a while, but no one really actually wants to tackle it. People run on it and win, the highest seat in the country on that issue, and then you find out no one actually really wants to work on it. So we'll touch on that issue and some of these questions here. I think it's probably one of the biggest issues our country's facing. So I guess let's go to the first question. You've described Washington as captured by an unholy trinity of special interests, lobbyists, and career politicians. What is one specific vote, bill, or policy where you believe Mike Rounds chose that system over South Dakotans? And what would you have done differently?
Well, I try not to focus too much on what Mike Rounds is doing. I just try to focus on what I can do and how I'd be different. Um, so I mean, the whole money in politics makes sense to me.
Hmm.
If I was a government contractor and I had all of this money, so government spending $7.5 trillion. It's important to have the people in power because then they can direct where a majority of that 7.5 trillion goes. If I was a business owner and a majority of my income came from a government contract, would you want to make sure you had find a new politician every 2 or 6 years, or do you want to keep the same guy in there forever? So you just keep calling him.
Right.
So that's why the barrier to entry is that, oh, there's all this money in politics. Um, I think that here in the state of South Dakota, people are just tired of. They see it. They're like, okay, well, you have $10 million in your campaign account, and then you're going to try to pump me with a narrative to try to tell me something I know that is not true.
Right.
I think that people are just starting to wake up to it. I've been self-funding this campaign myself up to this point. I don't have an unlimited amount of money, but
Hmm.
I'm being very frugal. I'm being very efficient with my money, because it's my money at the end of the day, and I am focused on meeting as many people as possible, telling my story, and then just tell everybody that I meet. Just go tell 10 people that you met me. And
Right.
this is what I'm focused on doing. I don't need to raise millions and millions of dollars of special interest money. I get those. I've gotten those phone calls in the past, and just like,
Hmm.
I'm good. Like,
Yeah.
I've been to over 80 events since the beginning of the year. I've seen the incumbent at two of them, so that's something that's different. I give him some grace on that. Only bad things happen for him if he shows up and he opens his mouth. So, no, and that's extremely fair, right? Like,
Yeah.
only bad things can happen.
Yeah.
So he's just relying on the amount of money he has, to send, to stay at the top of people's minds, and then to tell a narrative. um, but there's nothing different. There's nothing more powerful than being in front of somebody and then them getting their 2 cents on you. Just like everybody that watches this, they're going to sit there and say, I agree with the guy or I disagree with the guy.
Right. Yep.
But at least we're empowering them with the access and the information to make a decision.
Right.
One thing that I'll just be completely different. One thing I've committed to doing is transparency, to be very transparent. Everything that I'm going to vote on in Washington, D.C., I'm going to have a commentary and I'm going to make that public on why I voted that way. Now, you can agree with me, you can disagree with me, but at least you're going to have the information of where my headspace was at on why I made that
Right.
decision, what the inputs were, and then people are empowered with how it makes them feel about that. And that stems from something that my father taught me when I was a very young boy. He said, "Justin, people deserve the truth so they can act accordingly." And I think we've kind of lost that. There's just more and more of a separation. I mean, all these politicians are just human beings at the end of the day. They're not
Sure.
some untouchable, unreasonable. Um, so I mean, that's one thing that I'm committed to doing. Every senator gets it's like something crazy, like a $6 million budget every year. You try to look it up, you can't see what they're spending the money on. I will every dime that I spend, will be made public. And the only thing that's going to keep me honest is the people telling me, "Hey, you did this or that." Okay, well, at least I'm going to empower you with the facts as I know them, so you can
Hmm.
come at me with the facts as I know them, and so we can have a conversation about it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's a great idea. It's been interesting to see kind of how some politicians use like the platform or a space to like communicate with their constituents, and I think that what you're saying there is that's ideal in my mind personally. I think that's already a step up above most of them. If you're
Mhm.
just kind of coming to the table, you're like, this is why I did this, and doing it all the time consistently. I mean,
Mhm.
transparency is huge, and everybody promises so much of it, and it's hard to find it. So.
Well, everybody gets a staff of 18 people. I don't know what they got those staff working on, but I mean that's
How
something I'll
not
get the
to how
staff.
not to let that get out, right? Yeah. Yeah,
That's something I'd get the staff to be working on.
sure.
And so I mean we're all products of our environment,
Hmm.
right? Or we're products of the inputs that we receive. So what do you want those inputs to be? And I think that's one
Right.
of the disconnects in Washington. It's okay, well, they spend so much of their time in DC or with special interest or with lobbyists or with people that are writing checks, right?
Hmm.
And they lose touch, they lose the finger on the pulse of the people. I think that's, I believe in our founding fathers and the system of government that they set up. And
Right.
I think that was the whole idea of a 2 year for the House of Representatives and a 6 year for the Senate. It was okay, go out there and run a campaign, meet the people, and then you're going to go in and legislate based on that campaign you just ran, with your finger on the pulse of the people and what they wanted. And then guess what? You go back to your life, right? Because government really didn't have that much power to be making these decisions.
Right.
And it was more of a public service than this. Oh, well, now this is a job, and
It's a
everybody that
career,
goes in
right?
comes. Everybody that goes
Yeah.
in comes out way more. And there's nothing wrong with making money, but like,
Sure.
if you go in and you have nothing and you come out and you have tens of millions of dollars, I mean, okay, guys, come on, guys.
Yeah, we all know what happened there. Well,
Yeah.
on the topic of money, and what you were talking about earlier with like how much money you've had to spend on your campaign. From what I understand, and I could be wrong, correct me if I am wrong. I mean, I'm looking at a number of $1,555 spent as of March. I don't know what that number might be now, and that's for your campaign. If that's an accurate number, or if you can provide some context in terms
No,
of
I
how
think
much your
so.
campaign
No,
spent.
that last filing, that 1,500 number was the amount of contributions that I received other than myself.
Okay, so I
Uh,
mean, do you mind disclosing how much you spent?
I forget what it's up to now. It's
Rough,
it's
rough,
it's
rough.
it's. We wanted to make sure we got on the ballot first.
Sure.
I don't know if you tracked what happened 2 years ago, but we had to go all the way to the Supreme Court just to get ballot access. We were
Oh,
denied that. I was under investigation for the three felonies. It was all lawfare related.
yeah.
Um, no, but we're trying to get all this done for under $100,000.
Okay. I
Yeah,
mean, Mike Brown's committee is reporting about 3.77 million. So,
yeah.
you know,
We'll see how efficient they are with that money.
now that to your point earlier, I guess we will. Let's see here. We got another question for you. And this is kind of more tailored towards like your issues with the national debt. You said that federal debt is the primary reason you're challenging Senator Rounds. Beyond cutting waste, what are three specific reforms you would support in your first term? And I guess do they touch on like Social Security, Medicare,
So we
Medicaid,
have
defense, farm programs?
we have to address the three big ticket items on the debt. So that's Social Security, that's healthcare, and that's defense spending.
Yep.
So Social Security, great government program. People have paid into that system, but the formula is antiquated.
Hmm.
So when the Social Security Act came out in 1933, the average life expectancy was 67 years old,
Right.
and the benefits started at age 65. So that was 2 years of benefits that people would basically be getting. That is not sustainable when people are living into their 90s and even hundreds, and they're receiving benefits for 30 plus years after only paying in for 40 quarters or 10 years.
Hmm.
We just have to have an honest conversation on what that looks like. And that's something that we're going to have to discuss because it's going to have to get passed through legislation. If we do, and what I want to remind everybody is if we do nothing, Social Security shuts down in 2032.
Right.
So only 75% of it's going to be funded by 2032 if we do nothing. So if we do nothing, then the government has two options. They print a bunch of monopoly money and give it to everybody, or two, they cut benefits across the board because it's not like they can sit there and say, well, this is the 75% of people that are going to get benefits. So that correction is coming, whether we like it or not. We can either have a hard conversation now. Um, I think it's also unfair to. So if you look at, so Social Security is a pay as you go, and
Hmm.
that trust fund is supposed to have all the money it needed into it. But unfortunately, the government has raided that trust fund multiple times. So the amount of people that are paying in, so all of my employees and me as the employer pay into Social Security, and that is going to pay the benefits of the people that are currently on it. I think it's just fundamentally unfair for kids that are working for me that are 20 years old or 20, in their young age, that don't own a home, don't have a car, they maybe have a car. They're sitting there offsetting a large, a portion of their money to
Right.
people that are millionaires and own a home and everything else. It's just and for something or for a benefit that probably is not going to be there 40 years from now for them. Um, so we have some options there. Private industry went away from pension plans in the 70s and 80s. If you used to work for a company in the 50s and 60s and 70s, you had a pension. You brought up being in the union. You have a pension in the union.
Right.
Um, those are probably all well funded. Unfortunately, a bunch of corporate raiders in the 80s. That's what that whole Wall Street movie was about. They raided these pension funds and then bellied up the company. So it was horrible that happened. But anyway, I digress there. But you see this huge move to private accounts. So 401k plans, IRAs.
Yep.
Now, there's good and bad with that. So, I mean, you participate in the market, you can have a huge increase in wealth that happens there with that money, but you also have, as the individual, you have control over that.
Right.
Another benefit to that was that dumped a ton of money. There's trillions of dollars in the American economy now because of Americans' retirement accounts that are invested in the American economy.
Right.
Um, so maybe there's a part of the discussion could be, all right, well, let's figure out people that want to opt out or opt into a private account. Let's figure out what a payout would be for them and just stroke that check now, and it's no longer a liability on the federal debt, the debt, excuse me, or on the balance sheet. Second is healthcare that we talked about.
Yep.
Healthcare is the one thing that's going up by double digits inflation every single year for the past decade.
Right.
Now, I sat on the board for an international healthcare organization,
Okay.
and we saw the cost of our care triple after the Affordable Health Care Act. Lots of great things that happened with our Affordable Health Care Act, making sure people couldn't be, denied for pre-existing conditions. But one of the downsides was that we saw the cost of our care to provide. We were a charity hospital. The cost to provide our care didn't change, but the administration cost tripled.
Hmm.
So to provide the same surgery to a child, let's just say it was $15,000. Now we had to go and charge it at $45,000, try to get reimbursed from insurance on it, and then guess what? All of our insurance negotiated rates were pennies on the dollar. So it
Yeah.
cost us more to administer the care and try to get this fantasy number than it ever took us when we were just trying to provide the care for the need that we saw. And I think, I mean, just ask yourself the question, how are health insurance companies do it now versus 15 years ago. I mean, they're doing
Yeah.
a lot better.
Yep.
So I think there needs to be some transparency in pricing there. And then, all of our healthcare organizations are all nonprofit organizations that are run like Fortune 500 companies. So they have to spend the money. It's not like they can retain earnings and do all this other
Yeah.
stuff.
Yep.
So, I mean, that just naturally prevents efficiencies or making you be able to have a cheaper healthcare cost.
Right. Yeah.
We're getting away from, like, if the goal or the mission is healthcare, then you need to make sure that it's the quickest line between the person providing the care and the person receiving the care, and not all this overarching stuff that's over and above it.
Oh,
Um,
and that's an interesting point. I wonder, I watch some doctors, some practicing doctors on YouTube, and I've talked to even my own, kids' pediatrician, and I keep hearing the same thing, man. It's like the insurance industry has serious problems with it, and doctors, practicing medical professionals feel the same way. I feel like there's a lot of support in the industry to see a change on the industry on the insurance side of things. So I mean, there's got to be moves that could be made there,
but you see the same thing in, I mean, I don't want to bring this sleeping bear up, but you see the same thing with education.
right?
Right. So if the idea should be, we want to educate children and we want to take care of teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep.
why are we paying more for insurance than we are in teachers' salaries in some of the school districts here? It's
Yeah,
insane,
it is
right?
crazy.
And it's not because but so much of the money is going to the administration of the education, and it's not going to educating the children and taking care of the teachers that are there
Right.
to provide that education. They're the boots on the ground, just like the doctors are the boots on the ground providing the care.
Yeah.
And you have all these other people with their hand out, or not hand out, it's not the right word, but it is getting late. So, you start hearing me ramble a little bit more.
No,
Hopefully
it's
I don't
all
step on
good.
my tongue too much, but
I mean, hey,
um,
we've had our hand out at times when we really needed it. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people do genuinely need it, and some people
yeah.
not so much, So I don't think, it just it's tough when we're dealing with a huge, massive national debt like we
Mhm.
are, and we think that it's gonna just forever be able to, we're gonna just be able to give whoever
Well,
needs at any point in time.
that's where we need to re-strengthen communities. Nothing is
Yeah.
going to be better than your neighbor seeing you that you're in trouble and is going to come help you out.
Yep.
But all too often there's this disenfranchisement between helping your neighbor out because you're like, oh well, the government's got a program for that
Hmm.
and they'll take care of it. Well, guess what? The government most of the time isn't taking care of it. We see that with veterans, we see that with homeless, and all this stuff, right? Like, just because you throw money at a problem, there's nothing that's more powerful than a community that comes together to solve a problem. Um, anyway, rambled off on that one. Third is defense spending. Um, defense spend. When I was in the military, the fiscal year ends in October 1st of every year. So guess what we did every September? We spent a whole bunch of money on stuff that we didn't need because if we didn't use it, we lost it the next year.
Yep.
And now that's not to say that our military shouldn't have the resources it needs to succeed.
Hmm.
Nobody is saying that,
Yeah.
but maybe we should get to a zero-based budget. Okay, well, okay? Can we not just make sure that the submarine that I was on, let's just make sure that that submarine has the money it needs to succeed, and then hopefully they can just make it as most efficient as possible. But if we
Sure.
just appropriate $40 million, whatever the astronomical number is, and if they don't use it, they lose it. Like, that's backwards. I mean, that's not how you run your household budget. I'm sure with your
No.
family, it's not a successful way to do
Right, it
it.
wouldn't be. Yeah, definitely not.
Um, so I mean, there's definitely there. I mean, and then defense spending is the biggest thing, minus the interest rate, um, the excuse me, the cost for the interest. The defense spending is the biggest one. So I think that the for all of those different things, the people already exist on how we can find. You brought up waste, fraud, abuse. Cutting that, it's like, no, like, we just need to empower the people that find it. Like, what I would do in my business, I'm not going to hire a consultant to come in and just raise the ground and just start cutting and going everywhere with a chainsaw. I'm going to empower my employees and the people that work for me, like, hey, please tell me. I'm the guy that wants to know if there's a more efficient way to do this, and guess what, I'm going to bonus you on whatever you're saving the company, right?
Right.
So now
Yeah.
everybody's incentivized, like, oh, hey, we're going to turn these lights off, or oh, hey, we see that there's a better way to operate Justin's reactors.
Sure.
And if it saves 10 cents over the day over a year, that's X. Guess what? I am happy to write you that check,
Sure. Yeah.
for the savings you're finding. And that's how I would do it. Is I'm
Incentivize
gonna
greatness, you know? Yeah.
correct,
Yeah.
correct. Um, and so those are the three things on how I would tackle the debt.
Okay.
Um, I think that the problem is that people, one, either don't see that there's a problem, and this is the elected officials. They either, one,
Right.
don't see that there's a problem, two, they don't understand it, or three, they have no idea how to fix it.
Well, I
So
would think most of them see it with Thomas Massey's little clock he's got, right? His debt clock he wears every day. Every day he's on the floor.
So, that debt clock used, I remember being a kid going to New York City,
Sure.
and my dad was like, "Oh, we got to go see the debt clock." And because, it was going to, anyway, they took that debt clock down during Bill Clinton's
No
time
way.
because it was actually going down, right?
Oh, wait, really?
Yeah, it was going down. And it wasn't until, Bill Clinton left, and then we went to two wars for over 20 years. And
Yeah.
yeah, and then every single president's just kind of doubled it since they've been in. So, I mean, there used to be that joke, and since we're having kind of a laid back interview here, the joke used to be when Democrats are in office, only Republicans care about the debt. When
Yep.
Republicans are in office, nobody cares about the debt. And, but,
Yeah, no, I think that
and
still rings true. You know what I
that's not
mean?
to say that this is a serious issue. And, I mean, Ross Perot, when I was a kid, he used to scream about this. And he's like, guys, at the end, remember he had those little charts, those graphs, right? And he would come out and he'd be like, "Look right here," and I don't. It made sense to me when I was a kid. And he's like, "Guys, it's
Yeah.
just a simple math problem,
Right.
but do we just have the intestinal fortitude to make the hard decisions?"
Yep.
And I mean, we see it. I mean, your dollar is not worth the same amount as it used to be. And I mean, you can't even take your wife out to a dinner and spend less than $100.
True.
um, at a sit down restaurant.
Yep.
So, and that's, 15 years ago, that was a $20 meal.
Well, and I mean,
Um,
on the issue of inflation and spending, like with the, with our looming 2032 deadline for figuring out that issue of funding Medicare, or Medicaid, whichever one it was, you know, if we do just have to print a bunch more monopoly money, I mean, that's just direct inflation, just like it was with
right.
COVID. I mean, it's absolutely insane the accumulative inflation that we've experienced in such a short amount of time since the issue of COVID and then Congress passing the bill and being signed in to give everybody all that money. Obviously, sure, some people needed it, but like that's a big question we got to ask ourselves is how much
Well,
devaluation of our spending power are we going to be willing to do here? I
yeah.
mean, I'm in my early 30s. My kids, they're like 5 and 2.
Mhm.
Is their money going to be worth anything by the time they're my age? I think it's a real question people are asking.
So correct. So when government spending is a tax on all of us. It
Hmm.
raises the prices on everything. We guess what? We as individuals can never keep up with the amount of money that government spends.
Sure.
So their spending increases the price of everything.
Hmm.
Um, And the one thing that we haven't touched on, but this is very important, is our ability to continue to leverage debt is based on the U.S. dollar being the world reserve currency.
Right.
So everybody trades on the U.S. dollar right now. So
Hmm.
here's something that's kind of people should be thinking about. The entire continent of Asia, half the world's population, 4 billion people, live on that continent. We are posturing ourselves as the United States of making that the three big players in that continent minus India enemies of ours.
Hmm.
If they get their brains together and they say, well, we're no longer going to trade on the US dollar, that is going to greatly cripple and reduce the amount of money that we can borrow. The
Right.
Federal Reserve, I mean, if you own a store and and then half your customer base goes away, your ability to leverage debt is no
It's
different.
Yeah.
is no different for us being the United States of America. So, um, I would hope that people start thinking about that as well. Um, what allows us to maintain and continue to be the world economic superpower is us have being the world reserve currency. And if that changes, bad things happen.
Well, um, let's see. You criticize corporate welfare and special interest subsidies, right? Am I right about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a free market guy at the end of the day.
Okay.
So, I was chatting with, the big thing going on in the state right now is everybody, cheers about economic development. I'm like, okay, well, I guess there's two schools of economics. There's Keynesian economists that was basically New Deal in the 30s. We needed to pull ourselves out of the Depression. They used government spending to pull the economy out of a depression. And
Okay.
then you have the Austrian school or the von Mises school of economics, or Milton Friedman, who
Mm-hmm.
just believed in the free market, the invisible hand of the free market. People, a buyer, a consumer, and a producer agreeing on a fair trade for the product or service, and then the consumer sitting there saying, "Okay, yes, we will do that." So corporate welfare, government, subsidy, and economic development are all the same thing. It's government that steps in. It uses your and my tax dollar to pick winners and losers.
Right.
Um, and so you see, I mean, you see it across the state. People are starting to get their eyes are starting to open on economic development, and it's like, whoa, 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 you guys are using my money for what?
Mm-hmm.
And look at it. I mean, the companies that are getting these huge, economic development packages, guess what they're doing? They're giving huge campaign contributions to these same politicians that are doing it.
Of course they are.
And
Yeah.
and so people are starting to wisen up to it. Water always levels, right? We're not victims. But we can educate ourselves and say, hey, whoa, 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 we see what's going on there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can let our elected officials know how we feel about that.
Sure. I guess, is there a line between like legitimate economic development and corrupt favoritism for you that you kind of see playing out there? Or like, I guess, where do you stand on that?
So, I mean, in the state here, they use TIFs, right, for economic development. So, tax increment financing.
Okay.
That's a great concept. So, imagine I'm a developer and I'm like, hey, I want to develop this 200 acres of land here. But the city doesn't have power lines, they don't have sewer, they don't have roads, whatever the municipality would normally do that they don't have. The way a TIF's supposed to work is the developer says, "Hey, I tell you what, I will build all of that and I'm going to hand it over to you, Mr. Municipality, and you guys will run it. So that's an asset that I am giving you, and then you are just going to give me a break on my taxes
Hmm.
until that's paid off."
Right.
That's the way it's supposed to work. But
Yeah.
now you see all this discretionary spending that's happening inside of the TIFs. And it's
Hmm.
like, all right, like so, in Rapid City, West River is a little bit more cowboy on some of these TIFs than East River, but and you look at it, so like on $150 million it was $150 million TIF for $180 million project. So okay, you mean to tell me that the developer had $30 million at risk on this? Like, okay,
Yeah, sure.
there's not that much infrastructure that the city is going to get benefit from.
Right.
And because that's a fine line, right? You can't sit there and forecast something and say, okay, well, the projected sales tax revenue and property tax revenue is going to be X, and
Hmm.
it's all forecasting. Uh, you know, Talk to
Sure.
every single business that's ever went belly up. They had a great forecast of what was going to happen.
Right.
But
Yep.
but only about 20% of businesses stay afloat after 5 years. But anyway, um, so yeah, I think that it just looks, people are starting to wisen up to that. It's like, okay, we understand. We want to have things where, our kids are able to stay here. But there's nothing, and I will stand behind this statement right here. You can sit there and court big business all day long. It's going to take you forever for that revenue, for that economic growth, for those jobs or whatever to come into the state. There is nothing faster than a small business owner that sees a problem, establishes a company, and goes hires two people.
Hmm.
There's nothing that's faster. And when you're going to see the job creation, the money coming in from tax revenue, and the speed at which you're going to be able to solve the problem, than energizing small business owners to go out there and throw their shingle out there. There's nothing faster than it.
Yeah. I mean,
You'll
I
be you'll be holding your
think
breath, waiting for 5,000 jobs to come into the state.
no, that's a good point. That's a really good way to put that. Yeah, for sure. Speaking of small businesses, I don't know how small you consider your business, but I got a question about um whether or not your business Dakota Biochar has received, applied for, or benefited from any federal, state, local, nonprofit, quasi-public grants, tax credits, the whole nine yards, in terms of you know, development incentives.
Oh, perfect. Yes. So as far as development, no, I don't have a sales tax exemption. One thing I will say is Dakota Biochar was an idea in my head less than a year ago. July
Sure.
last year is when I started penciling it, seeing if it would make sense. I was able to get all 12 of the different permits that I needed from the state. So it was good in the sense of South Dakota being able to get that business up and running and started. To answer your question, I used all of my own money to get the project started. We did apply for a $25,000 government Office of Government, excuse me, Government Office of Economic Development grant, proof of concept grant. What they wanted to see for us was they wanted to show that we could prove that our biochar would work in the soil. And so it
Okay.
was all this different testing. And it's like, okay, well, if you'd like us to do that, then we have to pay all these people to do that. And they said, okay, well, we will give you this $25,000 grant to basically pay for the South Dakota, the different academics that are here in the state. So that grant was a pass through. And then we did apply for a private industry grant, the Richard King Mellon grant. We're still waiting to hear back on that. And then we also just recently finished an application for a wood innovations grant that's through the USDA. We'll see if that pencils out.
Okay.
Uh, and so that is grant money that is out for innovations in the wood products industry.
Interesting.
We talked about, we're taking this nuisance product or this waste product that's in the Black Hills National Forest. Um, obviously the Forest Service doesn't have the resources or the capability to do it. So we did apply for that grant. We have not heard back from that, and we will
Okay.
see how it shakes out. You'll have to ask me here. I think they're coming out with that in June. So
Okay. Sure.
I will let you, and then it's all public information too.
Right. Yeah.
Come June, but I'd be happy to answer that question.
Okay.
But again, we would, if we do receive that grant, then we would be putting it to effect on site 2 and site 3 for these things. So one of the things we wanted to use that money for is we're bringing the manufacturing of our reactors into the state of South Dakota. So right
Okay.
now, our products or our reactors are made in Missouri, and
Sure.
I wanted to bring that manufacturing into the state of South Dakota. Um, and so we're working on that. We just got to figure out the licensing agreement. So.
Cool. I guess, with that in mind, I don't know if you consider yourself anti-subsidy, like generally, like where, but it kind of seems like you might lean that way. So I guess like how do you kind of explain to voters like the desire to cut spending but also taking advantage of those kinds of subsidies, like do you think that there's specific areas where subsidies make sense and specific areas where they don't, kind of maybe flesh that out a
Yeah,
little
I
bit?
think that's a kind of talking out of both sides of your mouth there, is what it sounds like, huh? Uh, so I guess the way you justify that is, well, I mean, that's like sitting there saying, okay, well, should I just pay more in income taxes because I feel like I should, or should I use the income tax code that's currently there
Sure.
to the benefit and to the letter of the law?
Right. And I mean,
Um,
it's not necessarily like, trying to get you on anything. I'm just curious, kind
yeah.
of like if there's like like innovation, right? That's like kind of what your first grant was, right? I mean, that to me seems like a subsidy that, a lot of people would have a lot of interest in continuing to fund. So I guess I don't know if you just have like a kind of like a rough line, like is there like a innovation in industry across the board, something that you think would be valuable in keeping? Um, you know,
Well, so I guess there's a difference between grants and then there's a difference between just tax subsidies or just straight up like I'm going to offset the cost of whatever it is you're doing
okay,
in your business and to basically make it so much easier for your business to grow. So I mean, I think that's the difference between like a grant and then a full-on subsidy. A
okay,
grant
sure.
is more like, hey, well, we understand that this is a need or a problem and we are going to foster potential people that can actually go out there and get it done, and
Hmm.
we will grant them this money since we have assessed or seen that they can get it done, and we will award them this money. Different than a subsidy, which is just a, okay, well, we like this company and we're going to give them a sales tax exemption or a property tax exemption
Okay,
or a
yeah.
TIF or something like that. That's just a decision that a politician can make blanketly. Whereas the grants are more like, okay, well, no, this is like there's a program that's set up to do this.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And,
Yeah.
that's, yeah, I mean, I think I just kind of was blurring the lines a little there unintentionally. So, I mean, no, that distinction makes sense. That's more or less what I was looking for out of that question. So,
Okay.
you emphasize your Navy nuclear background and support for the next generation of nuclear energy. Do you have any ideas for like the first three federal nuclear policy changes you would pursue?
So, I mean, the problem with we don't really have an energy plan in the United States. Everything chases subsidies. That's why you see so much wind and solar right now,
Hmm.
is because the federal government is providing huge subsidies for wind and solar. Now, there's nothing wrong with wind and solar, but think of it as a tool in your toolbox. If you pull out a screwdriver to do something you need a hammer for, it doesn't make it a bad screwdriver, it just makes it a bad hammer. And so, we see all this wind and solar happening because that's where government subsidy has driven the industry. Makes sense in my mind. It's like, okay, well, if a municipality comes to me and tells me that they need to have 100 megawatts of power generation, and it's going to cost me X to do it with nuclear, or it's going to cost me X to do a coal plant, or it's going to cost me X to do it with wind and solar. And guess what? The bill is half the cost with wind and solar because of the government subsidy that's there. Guess what kind of power plant I'm going to be providing that municipality? A wind and solar plant.
Right.
Um, so as far as an energy plan, it would be I'm kind of an all of the above. Let's pull out the best tool out of the toolbox for that need that is there.
Sure.
Um, I'm generating a small amount of power. It's nothing that's going to change the world, but I'm turning a waste stream that of something
Right.
that is just either currently being burned in the forest or something that's just sitting out there and rotting in the forest. And we are creating a small amount or generating a small amount of power, which we are then either feeding the grid or a local on-site power need. Um, and so that's just a something that would just be rotting out there or just going in the atmosphere anyway. I mean, we need to have more like what so the tool that pulled out of the toolbox, and I told you about how people were making fun of me about the primitive way of burning wood, but it makes
Yeah.
sense, right? Like
Right.
if you're
Yeah.
if you're discharging all this heat, why would you not want to capture that heat, make some steam, and turn a turbine?
That makes sense.
So,
Um, let's see. Let's go to the topic of defense. You argue for strong defense without endless wars, correct? And you've expressed concerns about prolonged U.S. involvement in the Middle East, conflicts to Iran.
mhm.
What is your test for when U.S. military force is justified? And then would you require a new congressional authorization before strikes or extended deployments?
So I think the first thing I would ask myself is what is the threat, and what is the threat to America? I got raked over the coals on that interview I did with Coda the other day. They took a soundbite, and what I said and what I will say again is I don't see the threat that Iran posed to the mainland of the United States and the American people. I don't see it. I could be wrong. I don't have a top secret clearance anymore. So I trust that the people that do and that are making these decisions see something or know something that I do not. But at the end of the day, it's hard for me to get past that we have two very large oceans between us and Iran, and we have the world's strongest, most powerful navy. I don't see how they're going to be a threat to the mainland of the United States.
Sure.
Um, so that's where that statement came from. Um, to answer your question, I mean, so that's the metric I go through in my mind.
Hmm.
Um, so, what is the threat to the United States of America before we start um, sending troops in or sending, spending? How much are we? Think of what we could do with the amount of bombs that we're dropping.
Yeah.
How much does that cost? Um, there's 90 million people that live in that country. I'm all about, hey, if there's bad actors in the world, let's take those bad actors out
Okay.
and and have that regime change that people talk about. But at the end of the day, there's 90 million people that are in that country that are going to be suffering. When you
Right.
start talking about, oh, we're going to take out their power grid, or we're going to take out their bridges, we're going to take out their water supply, like,
Yeah.
okay, now you're causing harm to 90 million people. And at the end of the day, like, I'm a Christian
Okay.
and I believe we're all God's children, and so you're punishing other God's children over what? So let's just be honest about what that what is.
Right. Right.
This,
Yeah.
I hate to make the parallel between Iraq in 2003, but we were looking for weapons of mass destruction and taking out the um, taking out the center of terrorism in Iraq in 2003. Kind of sounds the same again. Um, Look, yes, nuclear proliferation is bad. You don't want to have certain actors, have access to nuclear weapons. But again, what threat does that pose to the United States? We have radiation detectors at every single port of entry and all the airports.
Yeah.
How are they going to get it here? Um, and that's not to keep rambling on about that, but
I mean,
the
that's a good point. I mean, even like people like to say that like North Korea, like, they supposedly have nuclear capabilities, but like how much of a threat are they, like, at any given point in time? And how much more of a threat are they if like you deploy
yeah.
to their homeland? I mean, I
So
would say that increases the threat by
look at it
significantly.
look at it this way. So in the 80s, right, during the height of the Cold War, before Russia fell, Russia had the ability to launch like 5,000 ballistic missile submarines, or
Okay.
not submarines, missiles.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So that's 5,000 missiles that would go up into the air and rain down, and then our plan was just to shoot back, right?
Hmm.
Well, at that time in the 80s, we probably could have shot about 80% of those missiles out of the sky.
Right.
I would hope and think that I mean, every time North Korea tried to fire something, what did we do? We shot it out of the sky.
Yeah.
So even if they had ballistic missile capabilities, your ability to shoot those out of the sky and make that a non-threat is there.
Hmm.
It's the same thing with the hypersonic missiles. Oh, it could take a aircraft carrier out. Okay, well, I'd like to think that the United States government or the military has a backup plan for how they're going to combat that.
Right. I mean, I think one point that's, I can't remember who made it, who like kind of posed the question as a point, as an argument against people saying that Iran isn't a threat. The idea is that they're more of a threat to not only the United States, but the global stage as a whole because of the amount of control they have over the strait and how much like absolutely like fundamentally critical resources come up through there.
Mhm.
So I guess in that context, do you think that changes maybe the urgency, the level of urgency and
So
legitimacy behind trying to prevent them to get
what
nuclear capabilities?
what I would say then is there's no way that you're going to be able to control that Strait of Hormuz without having boots on the ground. And do we have the gumption to put American soldiers boots on the ground inside of Iran?
It's a good question.
So that strait is very narrow.
Hmm.
From satellite imaging, you cannot see little caves and caverns where you just have rocket launchers in the side of a mountain that are going to continue that strait or continue to harass that strait.
Hmm.
Um, so, or is it easier to do the regime change, take the bad actors out, allow the 90 million people that are there to sit there and establish the government that they want, and then start trading with them again. There's nothing that's going to beat the free trade. After every single major war, what did we do? After World War One, it was the League of Nations. After World War Two, it was the UN and NATO. They came together because they saw the devastation of war, and they understood that it was easier, cheaper, and better to just trade with people, sit there and say, "Hey, you have something that we want. We're going to pay you a fair price for it." And we need to get back to that. This posturing, all war is from the beginning of time, is you have something that I want, and you're not, and we haven't agreed, we can't agree on how I can get it from you, so I'm just going to take it from you.
Yeah.
And so let's not get it twisted. I mean, that's what war is at the end of the day, and all we do is come up with it justifications or excuses on why it's okay for us to do it.
Right. Yeah.
And so, and look, I mean, I spent 6 years of my life, on the global war on terror.
Hmm.
Uh, and, I'm too old now to go to war. I just want us to be asking questions
Sure.
before we do all this.
Yeah, like really
And
considering it. Yeah.
correct. And if that makes me crazy, then it makes me crazy. But
Hey, some people
uh,
like crazy, so. All right. Well, let's see. It's getting late. So I'll probably, maybe we'll do one or two more questions and then we can wrap it up. Um, let's see. President Trump has endorsed Mike Rounds. When would you break with Trump or Senate Republicans? And can you name a specific issue where your judgment would come before party pressure?
hmm. Well, I'm always going to represent the people of South Dakota, not a party or a president. Now, that's not to say I want the president to do a good job. I
Okay.
look at him as the pilot of the aircraft that we're all collectively on. I want that guy to do a good job. I want him to land the plane. I want him to get us there safely. I'm not going to sit there and try to prevent him from doing his job.
Okay.
I think we should have questions. Our founders set up this government at three equal branches, right? So the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. I think we are seeing that the executive branch is taking more and more power, and this is all presidents over the past 20 years, or
Hmm.
is taking more and more powers because the legislature has been ineffective at passing laws. So
Absolutely.
if we don't like something that the executive branch is doing, it's because that the legislative branch hasn't gotten their act together and gotten stuff done. Um, and then you have the judicial branch that makes sure what everybody's doing is legal. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think if we go back to the equal, everybody just doing their job, then there'll be that check and balance and the balance of power. Um, yeah, I mean the system works if we use it the way it's supposed to be used. So to answer your question, is there something that I'd break away from? Um, I would be asking the president hard questions on Iran. Like, what do we not know is
Okay.
going on right
Yeah.
now? And if you just say there's stuff that we can't know, and this is the best thing, then I'm willing to give you some grace because you're the president on that. But I haven't seen that discussion come out. It's
Hmm.
just been like, oh, we're doing this, and the reasons we're getting don't compute in my mind. And I think there's other people that think that. As far as party leadership, we need to get back to, hey guys, we need to put these partisan things aside and
Okay.
really focus on what so we have this we have a constitution. The
Yep.
constitution is our operating agreement that we gave. It was between we the people and the federal government, and we said, hey, federal government, there's certain things that we just can't do for ourselves as individuals, and certain things that states can't do. So we are going to cede some of our liberties and freedoms to you, the federal government, to provide these essential things that we need. And so it's all lined out there in the Constitution. We just need to make sure that the government stays focused on that. A lot of this stuff that the right and the left is bickering about is stuff that, in my opinion, the federal government shouldn't even be focused on.
Fair.
Um,
Yeah.
so if we could just focus, bring it back to center, hey, this is what the government's supposed to be doing for everybody, and let's focus on those things. Then hopefully we can operate an efficient government. And I would be willing to break away from party leadership in the event that it doesn't accomplish that core mission base of the Constitution and what the federal government's supposed to be doing for us.
Awesome. Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to ask was like, so it seems like your breakaway would be unconstitutional things, more or less.
Yeah, and
I
then
mean,
let's focus on, at the end of the day, we're American. We're all Americans, right?
mhm,
We can have difference of opinions on things, but this divisive nature. I mean, the easiest way to control people is to divide,
yeah,
and I mean you see that everywhere. And I mean that comes from leaders, right? Like we need to have people that motivate and inspire us to do better, to be better. That's what one thing I'm trying to do with this race is to show and prove people that if we see something wrong with our government, we can go take action about it. And if we're going to get, if we want to affect and really change things and for the better, we need to have more people working the problem. So we
yeah,
got 330 million people in this country. Let's empower them, not disenfranchise them. Let's motivate and inspire them, not belittle or think that their contribution doesn't matter. Everybody has something that they're going to be great at. Like let's define what that is, and then empower them to go be that change. I mean, that's a Gandhi quote: "Be the change you wish to see in the world." I mean, I truly believe it. Right? Like, how do we empower people to find something that they're motivated and inspired about, and then get them to go do it?
awesome. One last question.
Sure.
I'm covering my mouth. It's so late. Your campaign calls for ending eminent domain for private corporate gain
hmm
and eliminating the 45Q carbon capture tax credit.
hmm
Would you support a broader federal state ban on eminent domain for private infrastructure projects? And how would you define public use?
So I would define public use as, hey, we need an airport to get put in here. Oh, we need to build a new highway that's going to do this, or we need to build a hospital or a school or a power line or a sewer pipe or something like that. And then you use eminent domain because it's like, hey, this is for the public good. And we're going to pay you a fair value for this land that we need from you to
Yeah.
accomplish this.
Okay.
So that's infrastructure in my mind. Um, 45Q. So 45Q. What I don't like about that is they just need to be honest about it. If they would have come out and said, "Hey, we have pure CO2 coming out of all these ethanol plants, and it's gonna be a great way to get extra stranded gas out of the Bakken Plain up in North Dakota. So we got all these different ethanol plants all over South Dakota. We'd like to hook a pipe up to them, pump this CO2 up to North Dakota, so we can press more oil out of the shale, and it's enhanced oil recovery. Great, just be honest about it." Then that private company could have gone to private landowners and said, "Hey, today's your lucky day. We got this pipeline we want to put through your land. And guess what? We're going to pay you this much money every single month for the rest of your life." And
Hmm.
people should have been like, great. And the people that said, no, I don't want it, fine, figure out a way to put it on their property line or go around their property, whatever you need to do. That's not what happened. When they couldn't get the easements they needed, they went to the state legislature here in the state. And instead of the state legislature protecting the little guy, what did they do? They protected the big business,
Right.
right? And
Yep.
they tried to say, "Oh no, this pipeline's going through." And so that's a fundamental breakdown of what private industry should be doing and how they should be treating people. And it's a fundamental breakdown of what the state government should have been doing and how they're supposed to protect we the people. But again, good things came about it, right? Like that invigorated this whole state. The whole state got behind that because people thought, "Oh, what if that happened to me?"
Right.
And that was a time where the people came together and they put private industry and they put the state legislature back in its place. And so, I mean, that's what brings me hope about, all of this situation, all these things that come up. I believe that the human race will be able to figure out whatever problem is ever presented to them if we just get together and we get serious about solving the problem. Um, so yeah, and then 45Q is just a great way for oil companies to get extra government subsidy to get extra oil out of the ground, decrease the cost um, of production. Now, So I'll play devil's advocate there again. If it was brought to us as, hey guys, hey American people, do you want to save some money at the gas pump? Yeah, everybody wants to save money at the gas pump. Great. Well, there's this way that we can take this CO2 and use it as a gas to push out extra stuff. And instead of using water and fracking and whatever else, we can just use this gas that's there. And we're going to use this as enhanced oil recovery to get this extra gas to make it cheaper for you. It's going to be great for American energy independence, domestic oil production, blah, 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 blah. I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Right.
Probably more people would have bought that if
Maybe.
if they said it that way.
Yeah.
But that's not what they said.
Right.
So, and that's not how they did it. But again, the market's always testing things to see what works. And so hopefully they learn, oh, it doesn't work that way.
Well, I guess we'll find out.
But then again, just back to our recurring theme that we're talking about here, that is a private lobby that
Yep.
lobbied politicians to say, hey, you guys could help us out here, and we could we could decrease the stuff at the pump, just put in billions of dollars for these tax subsidies for us, and we will be able to get the stuff out of the cheaper, or stuff out of the ground, and everybody will be able to have cheaper gas. Well, I beg to differ and say, all right, well, you know, government spending is like taking a bucket of water out of one side of a lake, picking it up, walking to the other side of the lake, all while spilling water out of the pail, and then holding a big press conference and dumping water back into the other side of the lake and saying you're adding water to the lake. You know?
No, that's a great analogy. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, dude.
So I mean, it's money that somebody's going to have to pay the bill for at the end of the day.
Yep.
And how efficient is that? I don't know. It's
Doesn't
yet to be
sound
seen.
very efficient to me personally, but what do I know?
That
So
might be that, and I can't take credit for that lake comment. That's Milton Friedman, I think.
is it really?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I never heard it before, so it was new to me. I like that.
Well, you can clip that one if you want.
I planned on it. As soon as you said it, I was like, oh hell yeah. All right, man. Well, hey, I hope you feel that this interview was a good opportunity for you to kind of get some more yourself out there a little bit more. I know we're like real close. I mean, we're talking only a couple weeks away now, basically, before the primaries. So, I enjoyed and appreciate your time. Um,
Well, I appreciate the access,
yeah,
and I know that you'll do it right.